All right, what's going on, everybody? And welcome back to Self Check. I am the Alan Harris, and with me, as always, are my brothers, 3EBM Nick, Recovery Ray, Ryco Fit, and LBO Vic. And this is episode 13. Let's check in.
All right, so last week, fellas, we had a conversation about habits. And we focused on the quote, "We are where we are based on what we believe about ourselves and the habits we choose to practice." I thought it was perfect timing because we're going into the last month of the year. And as I talked about, I believe it was episode 9, each month I take time to audit my habits and to pay attention to the habits that I feel will add the most value to the person that I want to become and the things that I want to accomplish. So from last week's conversation, for me, it really reinforced just the intention behind the habits that I set for myself. And the reason why is because I can only manage what I measure. So one thing that I do is I write down the habits that I want to keep at the forefront of my mind for the entire month. And I write it down on a daily basis. I just pick 5 and I look to keep consistent those 5 habits throughout the month. So I'm grateful that we had that discussion so that I was able to implement some of the things that we talked about into this new month's list of habits. So yeah. Nick?
So that conversation, I remember last week I talked about being like intentional with your habits on, and so I really wanted to focus on what do I do in my everyday life that I feel like doesn't serve me in the way that I want it to. And the biggest one that I've had on and off for a long time is my sleep consistency. It's so easy. I can do a whole month of doing the same thing all the time, but then at some point I'm just like, man, I'm so tired of doing this. But the only downfall of that is that progression of change in your sleep is like a 2-week period. And so it's like I just make myself go up and down all the time. And so for this month of December, I made it my goal to focus on creating the sleep that's going to work for me consistently going into 2021. So the habit I've been practicing is just being mindful of how I feel when I wake up, when I go to sleep at this time, or if I do this before I go to bed, just figuring out what's going to work for me going forward.
Yeah, so for me, I know last week I discussed 2 different things that I was practicing, which are self-love and expressing gratitude. This week, I've kind of took in a deeper dive into what self-love actually is, what exactly that looks like. How do we provide it best to ourselves? And with that, I ended up going to Barnes and Nobles and finding the book Mastery of Yourself. And within that, from kind of the gist of what I've already gotten from the book, 3 chapters in, is it all starts from within. If we don't love ourselves, you can't love anybody else. Like, you have to see that image of yourself and love it. And until that happens, like, it's never gonna all work the way that you want it to.
Gotcha.
Dope. In all honesty, from the conversation, what I'm trying to work on is actually creating habits, actually doing the habits and writing them down and practicing them. Because as like we discussed, I really wasn't good at doing that and kind of following through with those habits. It would be more subconscious habits that I just picked up over time, and all of a sudden I've been doing this for days. So that's kind of what I've been focusing on a lot more now, is actually finding the habits that I want to implement no matter what, which meditation. But the biggest one, I would say, is being more mindful of my thoughts. I want to create that habit of understanding my thoughts and understanding my emotions and the connections to those. Because I'm finding myself getting wrapped up in those type of things and not understanding why. So I want to create a habit of understanding why. So I ask myself questions all day, every day, to just make it a better habit for myself. So that's what I've been doing.
So it's powerful.
What I took back was more of just watching the habits that I done the same thing he said. Changing my habits, just doing things a little different. Wake up in the morning, try to make my bed every day. I heard that was a good habit. Like, it creates different energy. I got that one from him, a lot. But nah, meditation, like I told you earlier, I went to meditation, so I'm gonna do it for a week straight and just see, the difference. Like, so I'm going tomorrow morning just to see, all right, cool. Did day 1, I really enjoyed it. it was different. Let's see what happens. You know, it's like day 2, day 7. You know, where we at, how I'm feeling. It was like creating new habits, trying new things. When I'm feeling like picking up my old habits, doing something different. Gotta. That's because I gave that challenge to everybody last week too. Like, hey, if y'all like to drink at this time, like, hey, pick a different time to do it, or then anybody do whatever at that time. So I gotta do it myself too. So just figuring out the different times when we do that, it's different. It's hard to figure out because you challenging yourself and you gotta be honest with yourself. But yeah,
That's what we're here for. Self-check.
indeed.
All right, everybody. So today we are going to talk about the topic that a lot of people think men don't talk about: our emotions. So starting off, I want to put this idea out there. The lady that gave it, you got to remind me her name one more time.
Susan David.
Susan David. So I just recently watched a podcast on Susan David, and she talks about our story. And our story, meaning where we grew up, how we grew up, and how we got to where we're at right now, is a direct reflection of how we present ourselves to the world. So if you grew up very loving, it's almost understandable to see why you're so loving in real life. So I just want to elaborate on that idea with you guys, of our story, and that being how we enter ourselves into the world. I'm gonna start with you, Ray, because I know you recommended the podcast to me, to kind of elaborate a little bit more on the beginning of us and how our upbringing is how we present ourselves to the world.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, who we are is pretty much ingrained within, I believe it's the first 7 years of our life. So that pretty much solidifies who we're going to be as people. Can we change that? Can we grow? Of course. But that influences so much. So I know personally, my story it came from very humble beginnings. My dad grew up in Haiti, didn't come to the U.S. until he was about 14 years old. His family was rich in Haiti, but then part of his family left and he lived a poor life. So he kind of had that upbringing. There was a lot of pain that he experienced, and he came up with a really great way of pushing down emotions and not paying attention to them. Just being like, I'm good. Even if, like, I've seen him have open wound and say, I'm good, and then continue on through his day. So that's one thing that I learned from my dad. And then my mom, similar story. She's not from out of the country, but she grew up in poverty here. She grew up in the south side of Chicago. So for her, a lot of what she learned was to give. She was a giver. She gave everything just to be a mom. She had her first 2 kids before she graduated high school. So all she knew was how to be a mom and to give. And so for me, I was shown how to give to people, and I was also shown how to push my emotions down and not really pay attention to them. That completely dictated where I made it to in my life before I became more aware and took accountability for who I was going to become, and recognized that I didn't have to continue that same cycle that I was shown growing up. So yeah, it truly defines who we are up until we are able to become more aware and take accountability for who we want to be. Our story is everything.
That's crazy, man, because I not where your parents came from, but kind of similar to, the habits that were created, or, how you presented yourself from that. So, growing up, my dad was the exact same way. He grew up kind of poor. My granny had 5 kids. They lived in Kansas City, Missouri. And so, my dad wasn't big on sports, but the rest of my family was. So as he was growing up, he was the academic guy. He was the baby of the family, but he was the academic guy. Then he joined the military. And when he joined the military, he joined as an officer coming out of college. And he was very, very clean cut when he did that. He began to have this persona of a higher him. You know what I'm saying? But within that, being in the military, that's not an emotional place. Like you can't let emotions get you or you'll die. You literally, So growing up, my dad was similar, where I remember very vividly, my dad would tell me things like, I remember we were in a high rise in, I think St. Louis. We were in a high rise in St. Louis, and it was tornadoes going around. But we were in this high rise hotel, and my dad and I was freaking out, just freaking out, man. And my dad was like, "If I'm not freaking out, you don't need to be freaking out." You know what I mean? And so from there, I never had connections to things if he didn't have connections to them. You know what I mean? So if it wasn't exciting to him, I wasn't excited about it. You know, so much so that I would bring new excitement and he would be like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm going to bring you something that makes you excited. Hey, Dad, I got a new sweatsuit." "Ah, look at you, boy." Because he likes sweatsuits. So over time, I started to suppress my emotions too, because the first time I saw my dad cry was at my grandmother's funeral. Literally, that's the first time I saw my dad actually break down and have this emotional episode of, oh my God. And it freaked me the fuck out. Like, I was sitting there looking like, dude, what? So much so that I had to be the strong one for him. I couldn't cry. I couldn't, because he wasn't used to that. So, you know, because he would tell me things like, "Tyler, what are you crying for? Calm down, talk to me. You need to speak. I don't know mumble jumble. I don't know any of that." So any emotional conversation I had, the emotions had to be out of it. We had to figure out what the problem was because we got other things to do. So as I got older, that affected everything, like everything. And I just started realizing it, honestly, when we went through going through the codependency thing, because I started to realize and reflect, damn, why did all these girls used to tell me I'm so cold-hearted? Why did people always used to tell me, "Tyler, you too cool"? Why do people always used to tell me, like, you just, do you laugh? Do you feel anything? Like, you just dump me and you don't feel no type of way? We've been together for 7 months and you could just strip away from that? So now that I'm more mindful of it, this is probably one of the hardest things for me to do, is that stereotype that we don't talk about our emotions, because that's what my dad was. That
Right.
We don't talk about emotions. You know, if you're sad, okay, we'll put aside some little time. But at the end of the day, Tyler, we got shit to do. You know what I'm saying? And so now, as a part of my story, is what I'm trying to do is change that narrative. You know, I want to be more open about my feelings. You know, and you guys have been a huge mark for that. For me to be able to actually talk, because I didn't have males besides bro to talk to. And even then, I don't think I was really expressing my feelings to bro like that. You know what I'm saying? But then we got comfortable with you guys, and now I'm able to really say, this is what's wrong with me. This is what's going on, and it's okay to have those moments. So it's absolutely crazy how we just don't know until we know something.
And see, I like what you said at the end, because it goes a lot along with what Raymond said at the end. When he said that the accountability was a big aspect of it, and you said it was when I realized that I was doing X, Y, and Z. And I feel like a lot of it for me in my journey with it has boiled down to my beliefs, an aspect of how do I identify with these emotions? Because a lot of us have the tendency to say we are something. And when we do that to ourselves, not only do we limit ourselves from being anything else within that moment, but we also are putting ourselves down, so now we're less than. And kind of how you guys talked about you wanting to have those connections, now that we don't know to have those inside, so we're going to look for them outside. And now we get back into that cycle of all the stuff that we hate, that we come to self-check for. And it all stems from just that initial belief of, okay, so what does this mean to me? And a lot of it from childhood, if it's what our parents believe and not us thinking for ourselves, then we fall right back into the same cycle they did, and now we're calling them generational curses. And so one thing for me now is to really focus on choosing what my emotions mean to me in those specific moments, and I use breathing to do that.
Yeah, that's something heavy to hit on too. Choosing.
Yeah.
You know, now that we're aware, we have the ability to choose if we decide if this is good or bad. Because another thing that hit home on the podcast was the emotions are neither good or bad.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We relate those to our upbringing. You know, so if 9 times out of 10, if you're calling it bad, it's because somebody called it bad. Like we were talking about earlier, you were saying somebody previously called it bad, so therefore it must be bad. And then we attach it to that, and now it becomes that emotion right then and there. But you know, having that ability to choose if this is good or bad has been a complete game changer for me, and I think for everybody, because you know, it's as simple as, just because I think snow is bad, there's people in Alaska that move there for the snow. You know what I'm saying? So that right there shows you that that's not bad. You chose for it to be bad, and I think that that's something tremendous that we all carry with us for sure. For sure.
It's really, and like like a lot of what you were saying really resonates to me, because there's just that negative conditioning that exists within the black community as a whole, especially with black men. And we're taught that we can't show emotion. We're taught that we can't be vulnerable. You know, we're taught that all of that makes us weak, you know, and that is something that conditions us as young black men and mold us into who we are. Now, gratefully, you know, most of us are able to, you know, kind of uncondition and break out of those habits, but there's a lot who, you know, they aren't, and they end up going out and doing things that are irrational due to this conditioning of their emotions, you know. So like, it's perfectly fine to be vulnerable. It's perfectly fine to be a man and cry. It's perfectly fine to be open with your emotions, because that's how you release everything at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And then I think also too, being in connection with that touches on another point of it's our guiding system. You know, if we stop looking at it more so as like, oh my God, I'm emotional, these emotions are bad or good, it's more so as a guiding system, and we can relate that back to our story, you know what I'm saying, and how we present ourselves. So, you know, if you're angry, you know, or what was the underline, was that the top word?
Yeah,
anger.
Yeah.
If you're angry, you know what I'm saying, where is that stemming from? I know we were discussing earlier, you know, that emotion, tracing it back to the guidance of that day. So like for me, the other day I was angry at work, and I put it all at work. You know, this is because of work. I don't want to be here. This is not fun. I'd rather be home. Why am I typing all this stuff? But if we trace back to how my day started, I was tired. I wasn't angry. I was tired. And so because I was tired, I was fatigued. Because I was fatigued, everything felt 20 times harder. So then ultimately being at work was just hell, but I related it just to work. Oh, if I wasn't at work, I'd be better off. Oh, if I wasn't here, I wouldn't be as tired. You know what I'm saying? But that wasn't it. You know what I'm saying? So I used that guiding system that we talked about to trace it back to its root. You know what I mean? And I found out that I was just sleepy, bro. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know, a lot of stuff, because what Ryan said, he talked about the black community, especially with black men. A lot that relates with us has to do with power. And a lot of that has to do with power, with it being submissive, and then we can't be powerful if you're vulnerable. That's all considered weakness. But I've been meditating on this stuff a lot lately, and I've realized like just how powerful love and vulnerability actually is. I'm kind of happy we're talking about it, because when you think about it, if you put someone under you, you got to worry about them coming after you to get where you at, them despising you, you pleasing them, and all these things. But if you raise somebody up with you, now you have this other person to where you can handle 2 times the amount that you could have in the first place. And we have this sense, and of course, you know, it comes from society, TV, movies, all these areas. But by realizing that love and vulnerability and acceptance, like we made, like you said, Tyler, you weren't big on sharing these things. We made a space to where that was accepted, and that's powerful. And now we've seen that us coming together, what we've been able to create from that, even though we all are doing something different, come from different places, have different thoughts and different opinions. Not to allow that to translate into community, we just literally build up a community, because now we're not worried about who has more than me and who's doing this and doing that. Now our emotions are, we want to be happy, and now that we're happy, we want everybody else around us to be happy.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
I think that started because I didn't always look at life from that perspective, but I started to be able to when I accepted the fact that I was whole, and recognizing that I can be vulnerable because I am whole. There's nothing that I'm going to lose by being vulnerable. There's nothing that like you said, there's nothing that's going to make me less than someone else because I'm already whole. In Buddhism, they talk about it. It's the indestructible nature. It's like we're a diamond. A diamond is a diamond. Nothing can penetrate it. But it's also acting as if you always have an open wound. So it's always something that can cause you pain, but it's a part of the process. It's just a part of life. We're going to experience pain. So it's just recognizing that in that we are whole. We are whole, and because that's the case, we can be who we truly feel we want to be and we can be because we're already whole.
Like something that you hit on that I want to take to the next level is that so the notion of good or bad, they're not good, they're not bad, but the emotions that you go through are okay. You know, they are okay, because something that she said that was so it just hit on the nail. She was like, if you think that some way somehow you're gonna have this life of just complete joy and there's no misery or anything, you're a dead man.
Mm-hmm.
You that's the only for the dead. You know what I'm saying? Because their infinite is somewhere else now. You know, but dang, I lost track a little bit. But hold on, let me get back to it. I definitely got it. Shoot, man.
I say, well, while you find it, I was going to say that with what she's talking about, I like the aspect that, oh man, it hit me too.
But no, so having a moment, man, get with us. But no, with our emotions, man, it being our guiding system, it not being good or bad, going through the emotions that we going through are okay, because the process, it's to get to success, you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail more times than you succeed. So to think that going through this process, you're not gonna be sad. You're not going to be miserable in some sort, not complete misery, but you might experience some of it. That you're not gonna see all this anger or disappointment. To think that path that you're going through and why you're feeling that must be the wrong path is almost unacceptable, because only the dead man can specifically say, I have no emotions. You know, I'm not going through anything. But it's okay to go through those emotions. It's then identifying those and not labeling it as good or bad. It's going back to those guiding systems of saying, okay, now that I am angry, you know, or I guess I am angry. Compassion. So we meet that with compassion. So as we're going on this journey, especially those who are for success, you're gonna have so many ups and downs because you care. You care for this. You don't have an emotion for anything you don't care about. So you're gonna go through that. So in meeting that, we need to meet that with compassion. So I do want everybody out there to understand that your journey is not gonna lack thereof of any of these emotions. You know what I'm saying? If anything, a lot of those emotions are gonna get amplified. And that's kind of where I think the entrepreneurial side of people, where they say, you know, some businesses start up and they fail, is because they get so caught up sometimes in those emotions too. It may be finances, but I think a lot of it too is emotions. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And letting that spiral and saying, I'm supposed to have a successful year where every day is good. I had a couple bad months, and then that spirals out. This must not be my path. This must not be what I'm going through. You know, so I want everybody to understand that it's like Ryan was saying, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. It's okay to let those things out. What's not okay is being stuck and not having that mindfulness to trace that back, so that way we get out of that. You know?
I know one thing I practice is I don't identify with any of my emotions. None of them. One practice I use was I sit back, and whenever I feel an emotion, I see where it resonates physically, and that's how I associate that emotion. So it's like when I have any type of anxiety, I know my nose starts to sweat. And a lot of times it will happen when I talk. When I talk in front of new people, I'm explaining something that they don't know, that I'm telling them, I'm getting excited and passionate, I'm talking. Mm-hmm. And if I feel, oh, I might have said something wrong, my nose starts to sweat. And so now when I do that, it's like, oh, that's, okay, got a little anxiety, it's cool, wipe that off. Now I've taken all the power out of that, because normally we would say, oh, I felt anxiety, now we have a panic attack. We're tired, we're shaking, all these things, because we associate the word anxiety with this feeling, and now we believe this feeling means we're going to experience these things, so inevitably we experience it. But by not identifying with our emotions at all, we take all of that away. I'm sad. Well, how do I feel? My heart feels heavy. Okay, I don't like that. So I now have the opportunity to change my thoughts and not be sad, which gives us all the power that we always wanted over emotions in the first place, and realizing that it's not power over them, you're just flowing with them, not identifying with them.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That guiding system. You know, so as we kind of wrap things up, man, you know, key points, going through your emotions is fine. You know, find those guiding roots to your story. Identify your story that got you to where you're at right now. And you are the curator of your new story. You know, so hopefully, you know, over this conversation right now, you're able to at least recognize that you have a story. And then you start thinking about, okay, how did I get to where I am? You know, what are the things that I care about and why do I react to them? You know, the breakups that you had, you know, why were those so hard for you? You know, or, you know, the frustration with coworkers. Is it the frustration of you being there, or is it, you know, the certain little tidbits and habits that they do that doesn't resonate with you? You know what I mean? So understanding that, understanding your guiding system, I think is super important. Like we also talked about, you know, don't identify with your emotions. You know, don't label them as you, because we attach them to ourselves, like you were saying. We attach them. I am. Well, no, you're not. You're going through something. So let's figure out what you're going through and root that back. You are not. You are going through. So I want everybody to really key in on that, and I make emphasis on that because this is a part that really I struggle with heavy, is being wrapped up in my head, and that's one of the habits that I'm creating now, is identifying with that. So yeah, hopefully this resonates really heavy with you guys. All right, so this is the part that I love, especially with topics that help me out a lot, is our takeaways. You know, what can we provide to you guys to start implementing what we talk about today, emotions, and identifying, you know, that they're not you, and, you know, we're going through those things. So we'll start down the line, as we always do, man.
So kind of what I said at the end. Try feeling your emotions, where they resonate physically. Allow yourself to be in the presence of that emotion, knowing that you're not that emotion. And then when you're able to pinpoint it physically, now you're able to take the power away from it.
Yeah, for mine, I would say it's similar. It's expanding your awareness of the emotions that you are experiencing, and then just giving yourself a moment to ask yourself this question: what is this emotion trying to teach me? Or you can ask it this way: what can I learn from this emotion? That will help direct you back to your story, help direct you back to what you truly care about. And it allows you to detach yourself from being that emotion, and you're able to now respond in the way that serves you best in that moment. So when you are experiencing uncomfortable emotions, take a moment, use some breaths, and ask yourself, what can I learn from this emotion?
Honestly, for me, like, I just want to express a little gratitude to you guys, because I think, like, you're really the ones who introduced me to being able to have awareness of my emotions. I think I was listening to the Balance Period podcast, and, you know, you guys got really deep about it. And, you know, up to that point in my life, I never used to stop and think, like, what's going on with Ryan? Like, am I going through depression? Am I going through anxiety? Like, that's 24 years of my life I spent, like, not even knowing what exactly was going on with myself. And then, you know, as of recently this year, when I started to really lock in and become aware of those things, that's how I've been able to combat them and defeat them as well.
Yeah, I second that, honestly, showing gratitude to all the guys here, you know, for allowing me to have that platform to release, because I mean, it started to affect me a lot, man, when people start saying, Tyler, why you think you so cool? You cold-hearted. Like, sometimes I'd be like, damn, dude, like, no, I'm not, bro. Like, if you would know how I really feel, but they didn't know.
Right.
But they didn't know. They didn't know. And so I'm grateful to have this platform, because this is the first time in a long time, you know, I've been this extremely vocal. Me and bro been hitting the ground for 6 years of just nose in. You know what I'm saying? Bro, we put it to the side, let's go. Okay, bro, let's go. You know what I'm saying? But for you guys, I would say, after this, you know, when you have some downtime, reflect on your life. Reflect on your life. Reflect on, you know, what was good when you grew up. You know, what irritated you. You know, what's still irritating you about what brought you up. Because we all got those moments where we sit back and be like, damn, man, I wish my dad wasn't like that. I wish my mom didn't do that when I was younger. You know what I'm saying? Because we have those conversations where misery loves company and we relate, and sometimes that comes up. You know, so I would say reflect on, just have a reflection on your life and see what your story is, but then also understand that you're not identified by your story, because you can rewrite it at any point.
Ooh,
Very true.
that's a good one.
That's real. That's real. I've been quiet a lot this episode. Clearly, I had a lot of emotions, so I just didn't. I didn't talk today more because I felt like I was going to be negative, and I didn't want to pass that. And I felt like it was going to be one of those just talking about. I don't know. Something could have drew out, but my uncle passed away today, and I felt like something odd was going on all morning because I just had a different type of energy. Like I just wanted to focus and make everything neat. So like right before, like I was getting ready to come in here, and my mom called me like, "Yo," I'm like, "Damn, well, cool." That threw off my whole energy, like it did, cause I'm thinking like, yeah, like I'm having a great day. Like I mean, I had a great day in general, no doubt, but it was more of a, it's like dang, like maybe it was a different energy, like hey, focus, like because I was focused in a different way today, like a completely different way. Like when I told you I went to meditation, like it was more on it was on confidence. It was on confidence and controlling your emotions, like how to just move in that way. And so that's kind of what I focused on. And then to come with all of this, like just to release, like more in confidence as I get deeper into it, like to release businesses. Like I kind of, we had talked about it, to release things and just let them go. You know what I'm saying? Let them be what they are. Like stop holding them. And so it was more along the lines of that's what I went in there for, to align my mind the right way. And then it's like, damn, I'm doing all this aligning. And it's energy shifting in the world, but it's a man I was real close to that's leaving at the same time. So it's just like, dang. So I stayed quiet today, more of on the learning, like you know how it is sometimes. But in a takeaway, I just say cope with your emotions, how y'all cope with them. I still challenge y'all to pick y'all habits and do them at a different time. Like for me in this moment, I would love to go get a bottle of Dawn right now, but I'm not gonna do it. I don't know. I just gotta think. You know what I'm saying? Just thinking dwell. Like I just say, think back on. Like you said, think back in your life. You know what I'm saying? Don't try to dwell too hard, but obviously think of the good times. Whenever you go through a certain emotion, and I don't know. I always just figure out how to come out on top, no matter what it is. That's the most I can say right now.
So,
Man, and I want to reiterate too, man. This show is definitely, we want to encourage and make our mark on the world. But this started with us, you know, getting in tune with ourselves, becoming mindful and learning as, you know, as friends, come together as brothers now, you know, to figure this thing out called life. You know, so this is a prime example of, this is our release as well too. So as much as this is helping you guys, trust me, this is a need for us every single day, every single Wednesday, excuse me. So we appreciate you guys, you know, for tuning in with us as always. And this has been a great episode. I appreciate you guys, you know, as always. And Vic for expressing that to us, bro, for real. Cause I know how much he meant to you, bro. If it's the uncle I'm thinking about.
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, guys, once again, this is So Check, and we out of here.
and don't judge yourself.